The subway smelled like rain and too many bodies packed into too small a space. I stood near the doors, one hand on my white cane, the other gripping the overhead bar. Friday night, 11 p.m., and I was exhausted in a way that went beyond physical. The kind of tired that settled into your bones and made everything feel heavier than it should. The kind that made every sound too loud, every jostle too jarring. I'd been navigating Seattle's public transit system blind for 7 years, ever since the accident that took my sight at 18. Most days, I managed fine. My cane, my phone's accessibility features, my carefully memorized routes, the kindness of strangers who actually bothered to help they were enough. I'd built a life around my limitations, learned to adapt, found ways to function in a world not designed for people like me. Most days. But today had been a disaster from start to finish. My alarm hadn't gone off because I'd forgotten to charge my phone. I'd spilled coffee on my only clean shirt while rushing to get ready. The audio editing software at work had crashed twice, taking hours of meticulous work with it. My boss had implied politely but clearly that maybe I wasn't the right fit for the senior editor position I'd been promised, the position I'd been working toward for 2 years. And then, walking to the subway in what I'd thought was a light drizzle, I'd been caught in a downpour that soaked me to the skin. My jacket was useless, my shoes squelched with every step. So, here I was, wet, exhausted, and trying to get home on a subway line I didn't usually take because construction had closed my normal route. The train lurched as it pulled away from the station. I tightened my grip on the bar, feeling the vibration through the metal. "Excuse me, do you need a seat?" The voice belonged to a beta woman, based on the faint scent. Kind of her to offer, but "I'm fine, thank you. Just 2 more stops." "You sure? You look like you've had a rough day." That was putting it mildly. "I'm sure, but I appreciate it." She moved away. The train rattled on through the tunnel. One more stop until mine. I could do this. Get home, take the longest shower in history, eat whatever I could find in my fridge, and pass out for 12 hours straight. The automated voice announced the next station. Not mine. One more to go. The doors opened. I expected the usual flow of passengers, some off, some on, the crowd thinning as it got later. Instead, a wave of new bodies pushed into the already packed car. I heard someone curse as they struggled with luggage, felt elbows and shoulders pressing against me from all sides. The crowd surged. Someone's bag hit my ribs hard enough to make me gasp. My cane got tangled in someone's feet. "Sorry," I muttered, trying to extract it. "Sorry, excuse me." The train lurched harder than before, taking a turn too fast. I lost my grip on the overhead bar. My cane caught on someone's shoe and jerked out of my hand. I felt myself falling backward, arms windmilling uselessly, and landed on something solid and warm. Not the subway floor. Not a seat. A person. Oh, God. I'd sat down on another person. Horror flooded through my exhaustion, hot and immediate. I'd literally used another human being as a chair. "I'm so sorry," I gasped, trying to scramble up. My hands braced against what felt like an expensive coat. "I didn't mean I lost my balance and my cane got stuck, and I'm so sorry." A hand settled on my shoulder, large, warm, with a grip that was firm without being constraining. "Don't move." The voice was quiet, pitched low enough that only I could hear it over the subway's rattle, but there was command in it, the kind of natural authority that made my body obey before my brain could protest. And the scent? Oh, God. The scent that hit me made every carefully suppressed omega instinct I had sit up and take notice. Cedarwood and winter air, clean and crisp with undertones of something darker, richer, unmistakably, undeniably alpha. I just sat on an alpha's lap. In a crowded subway car, with my suppressants doing absolutely nothing to stop my body from recognizing that scent as safe and right and mine. This was a nightmare. "I need to get up," I said, already trying to stand despite his hand on my shoulder. I'm so sorry. This is completely inappropriate." "The train's too crowded." A different voice, similar to the first, but with a slightly different cadence. Also alpha. Also carrying that same cedar and winter scent that was making my hindbrain go haywire. "If you try to stand now, you'll just fall again. The floor's wet from everyone's rain gear. I can't just sit on a stranger's lap for..." I stopped, processing what I'd heard. Wait, voices. 2 different voices. 3, actually. A third voice, warmer than the other two, with an undercurrent of amusement. I'm standing to your left. That's Julian to your right. And you're currently using Adrian as furniture? Adrian. The alpha whose lap I'd commandeered, whose hand was still on my shoulder, keeping me steady as the subway swayed. And there were 2 more of them. 3 alphas total, all with the same scent signature. Brothers. Had to be. Probably triplets, based on how similar they sounded. I'm Elliot, I managed, because even in mortifying situations, my mother's etiquette lessons kicked in. And I'm really, genuinely sorry about this. If you could just point me toward an empty seat. There aren't any, the one called, Julian said, not unkindly. This train is packed beyond capacity. You're actually safer where you are than trying to stand. I'm sitting on someone's lap. You're sitting somewhere stable where you won't get knocked around or stepped on, Adrian corrected. His voice was calm, matter of fact. Given that you can't see the crowd patterns, this is the safest option. The casual mention of my blindness should have stung. Usually did when strangers pointed it out. But he'd stated it like a fact, not a judgment. No pity in his voice, just practical assessment. Still, I said weakly, this is incredibly awkward. Only if you make it awkward. The warm-voiced one, the third brother, shifted position, and I felt the movement of air as he stepped closer. I'm Kieran, by the way. Since we're apparently past the point of formal introductions, despite everything, I almost laughed. This is definitely not how I plan to spend my Friday night. No? Kieran's voice carried a smile. You didn't wake up this morning thinking, you know what would make this day perfect? Accidentally sitting on a stranger's lap on the subway? Shockingly, no. What did you plan? Adrian asked. His hand was still on my shoulder, and I realized he was using it to brace me against the train's movement. Every time we swayed, his grip would adjust, keeping me stable. For tonight, I mean. Leftover Thai food and passing out in front of Netflix. I shifted slightly, hyper-aware of where I was sitting, of the solid warmth beneath me and the cedar scent surrounding me from 3 directions. Very exciting. Sounds perfect, actually, Julian said. We just came from a 14-hour strategy meeting. Your plan sounds significantly better. 14 hours? What kind of strategy meeting lasts 14 hours? The kind where 3 companies are trying to merge, and none of them want to admit their systems are incompatible. Kieran supplied. We're corporate consultants, mergers and acquisitions mostly. It's exactly as boring as it sounds. I'm an audio engineer, I offered. Post-production for podcasts and audiobooks. Also boring to most people, but I love it. But you love it, Adrian said it with certainty, not as a question. How did you... Your voice changed, got warmer when you said it. His thumb brushed my shoulder, so brief I almost thought I'd imagined it. You light up talking about work, even exhausted and soaking wet on a Friday night subway. I was sitting on the lap of an alpha who paid attention to vocal inflection, an alpha whose brothers created a protective barrier around us, keeping other passengers from jostling me. Alphas who smelled like everything my suppressant, dulled instincts wanted to categorize as safe and right and ours. This was dangerous. The automated voice announced the next station. My stop was 1 away. Where are you headed? Kieran asked. I told him the station name. A pause, then Julian. That's our stop too. Something in his tone suggested this was a convenient coincidence rather than the truth, but I was too tired and too overwhelmed to call him on it. The train rattled on through the tunnel. My initial mortification began fading into something else. Not quite comfort, I'd known these alphas for all of 10 minutes, but a strange sense of safety. Adrian's hand remained on my shoulder, steady and warm through my damp jacket. His brothers maintained their protective positions, and I heard them politely but firmly redirecting other passengers who got too close. Can I ask you something? Adrian's voice was quiet, pitched, for my ears only. Sure. Your cane. How long? Most people ask directly about being blind. Usually with that particular tone of voice, that meant they were about to either pity me or ask inappropriate questions. The fact that Adrian had focused on the tool rather than the disability made something in my chest loosen. 7 years. Car accident when I was 18. That must have been a significant adjustment. Understatement of the century. I let out a breath. But you adapt. Humans are resilient like that, most of the time, some more than others. His thumb brushed my shoulder again, still brief, still almost absent-minded, but I was starting to suspect it was deliberate, a way of maintaining contact without being intrusive. You navigate the subway system alone, at night, in the rain. That takes courage. Or stupidity, depending on who you ask. Courage, he repeated firmly. Definitely courage. The way he said it made my throat tight. The doors opened at the next stop. I felt the shift as passengers moved, creating space for the first time since I'd boarded. You can stand now, Adrian said, if you want. I should want to, should immediately extract myself from this embarrassing situation and pretend it never happened. But his hand on my shoulder felt grounding, and standing meant losing the warmth of his presence, the protection of his brothers, this strange bubble of safety that had formed around us. One more stop? I heard myself ask. His hand tightened fractionally. Just enough that I felt it. However many you need. We rode in silence to my station, not uncomfortable silence, the kind where conversation wasn't necessary because the presence was enough. When the automated voice announced my stop, all three of them moved with me. It was coordinated in a way that suggested they'd done this before, moved as a unit, anticipated each other's actions. Kieran retrieved my cane from wherever it had ended up. Julian guided me through the crowd with a hand at my elbow. Adrian stayed close at my back, a solid presence that made other passengers give us space. We made it onto the platform, the doors closed behind us, and the train pulled away. Thank you, I said, accepting my cane from Kieran, for not making that situation more awkward than it already was, and for, not dumping me on the floor. Can we walk you home? Julian asked. I started to refuse automatically. I did this every day. I didn't need. It's late, Adrian said quietly. And you said yourself you don't usually take this route. Let us make sure you get there safely. I'm 6 blocks away. That's a lot of escorting. We'll manage, Kieran said, and I could hear his smile. I should say no. Should maintain boundaries with 3 alpha strangers I'd met by literally falling into their laps. Okay, I said instead. But if you have somewhere else to be. We don't, all 3 of them said in unison. The walk home should have been awkward, should have felt like I was being babysat. Instead, it felt like the easiest thing in the world. They matched their pace to mine without making a production of it, offered arms when the sidewalk got uneven but never grabbed, never pushed, warned me about obstacles without being condescending. And they talked. Kieran told a story about their 14-hour meeting that had me laughing despite my exhaustion. Julian asked thoughtful questions about audio engineering that showed he was actually listening to my answers. Adrian walked on my left, close enough that I could track his position by scent and warmth, occasionally touching my elbow when we needed to change direction. By the time we reached my building, I'd almost forgotten why this was supposed to be awkward. This is me, I said, stopping at the entrance. Can we give you our number? Adrian asked, in case you ever need help, or if your Friday night Thai food plans fall through and you want company. I should say no. Should thank them politely and go inside and never think about Subway Alphas again. Instead, I pulled out my phone. VoiceOver will read it to me. Go ahead. He recited a number. I saved it, my phone speaking the digits back to me. Thank you, I said, for everything, for being kind about the whole sitting on you thing, for walking me home, for... I trailed off, not sure how to finish. For wanting to see you again, Adrian supplied quietly. My breath caught. Yeah, that. Can we take you to dinner? Kieran asked. All of us, if you're comfortable with that. Or individually, if that's too much. I should ask for time to think. Should process this like a rational person. Dinner sounds good, I heard myself say. All of you is fine. Preferred, actually. I felt Adrian's pleasure in the way his scent warmed, the way his hand found mine briefly. Tomorrow night? He asked. I work until 6. 7 then. We'll pick you up here. They left me at my door with promises to text me details. I made it inside, up to my 4th-floor apartment, through my lock before I let myself process what had happened. I'd sat on an alpha's lap. 3 alphas had walked me home. They'd asked me to dinner, and I'd said yes. And every single one of my carefully suppressed omega instincts was screaming that they'd smelled right. that something about them had felt like coming home. I took my suppressants with shaking hands and told myself this was just dinner, just three attractive alphas being nice to the blind Omega who'd embarrassed himself on the subway. Nothing more. I was wrong. The text came at 8 a.m. Saturday morning. Good morning, Elliot. It's Adrian. Did you sleep well? I stared at my phone screen as VoiceOver read it to me. He was texting me, the morning after we'd met, like we were friends. Like yesterday hadn't been a weird accident, but the start of something. Morning. Slept like the dead. You? Better than I have in months. Kieran wants to know if you have any food allergies we should know about for tonight. No allergies. I eat pretty much anything. Perfect. Julian's already planning the menu. He stress cooks when he's nervous. The image of a powerful alpha stress cooking made me smile. He's nervous about dinner? We all are. We don't want to mess this up. That honesty made something in my chest warm. Active. Me too. But I think we'll be fine. Better than fine, he replied. I'll text you later with details. Have a good day, Elliot. I floated through Saturday in a daze, cleaned my apartment, did laundry, tried to focus on work I'd brought home. Mostly, I thought about three alphas who'd been kind to me, who'd seen me struggling and helped without making it feel like charity, who'd smelled like safety. At 6:30 p.m., my phone buzzed. We're downstairs. Take your time. I grabbed my cane and my keys, checked that my suppressants were in my bag just in case, and headed down. They were waiting at the building entrance. I could smell them before I heard them, that cedar and winter scent that made my hindbrain purr. Elliot, Adrian's voice. You look nice. I'd changed 3 times before settling on dark jeans and a sweater that Zara had assured me was subtly hot without trying too hard. I had no idea if she was right, but I trusted her judgment. Thanks. You smell nice. Kieran laughed. That's the best compliment we've gotten in months. They took me to a restaurant that wasn't too loud, with a host who seated us in a quiet corner booth. Adi sat beside me, Julian across, Kieran beside his brother. They have Braille menus if you'd prefer, the server said, or I can read it to you. Braille would be great, thank you. The menu arrived. Adrian's hand brushed mine as I felt for it. Do you want help navigating, or would you prefer? I've got it, I said, then softer. But thank you for asking instead of assuming. We're trying, Julian said. If we overstep, tell us. Dinner was perfect. They asked questions that showed genuine interest about my work, my life, how I'd adapted after losing my sight. I asked about their business, their family, why 3 brothers worked together. We've always been a unit, Kieran explained. Born together, raised together, it never occurred to us to do anything separately. That must be nice. I'm an only child. Always wished I had siblings. You can borrow ours, Adrian offered. His hand found mine under the table. If you stick around long enough. The casualness of the touch, the implication that he wanted me to stick around it made my pulse race. We talked for hours. The restaurant staff clearly wanted to close, but nobody pushed us to leave. Adrian's thumb traced patterns on my palm. Kieran told stories that had me laughing so hard I couldn't breathe. Julian asked about my favorite audiobooks and actually remembered the titles. When we finally left, it was past midnight. Let us walk you home, Adrian said. You walked me home yesterday, and we'll walk you home every time you'll let us. They did. And at my door, Adrian cupped my face with both hands. Can I kiss you? My heart stopped. Yes. He kissed me soft and careful, like I was something precious. When he pulled back, I heard Kieran clear his throat. Do we get to kiss him too? Or is this an eldest brother privilege? Kieran, Julian said, but he sounded amused. I laughed. You can kiss me if you want. They did. Kieran's kiss was playful, full of warmth. Julian's was gentle but thorough, like he was memorizing the taste of me. We'd like to see you again, Adrian said when they finally pulled away. As often as you'll let us. Tomorrow? I asked. Tomorrow, they agreed. Tomorrow became the next day, and the day after that. Our second date was a concert. Not a seated performance, but a standing room show at a small venue where I could feel the bass thrumming through the floor. Describe it to me, I asked Adrian as we waited for the band to start. The stage is lit in blue and purple. Maybe 30 people scattered around us. The drummer's setting up, she has pink hair. The guitarist is tuning, and he keeps making faces when the notes are off. What about you? I asked. What do you look like right now? A pause. Then, Kieran's grinning like an idiot. Julian's watching you like you hung the moon, and I'm wondering how I got lucky enough to meet you. My face heated. That's not a description. It's the truth, he said simply. The third date was cooking lessons at their penthouse. Julian taught me to make carbonara, guiding my hands through the motions, describing each step in detail. You're a natural, he said as I stirred the eggs. I'm following instructions. You're trusting the process. That's harder than it sounds. Kieran made cocktails that tasted like summer and made me feel warm all the way through. Adrian sat at the counter and narrated our chaos with dry commentary that had us all laughing. When we ate, crowded around their kitchen island, it felt like family. The fourth date was supposed to be a museum, but it rained so hard we ended up in a bookstore instead. Audio section is this way, the employee said when Julian asked. Actually, I said, do you have anything in Braille? They did. A small section in the back with classic novels and poetry. I ran my fingers over the spines, reading titles. Adrian watched me, his scent warm with fascination. What are you looking for? He asked. Nothing specific. I just like the feeling of reading with my hands. It's different from audio, more intimate. He bought me 3 books. Wouldn't let me pay. Consider it a thank you, he said, for letting us into your world. The 5th date was a mistake that turned into the best night. They'd planned a movie, described audio track and all, but the theater got the accessibility wrong. No described audio available. We can leave, Julian said immediately. No, I said. Stay. Just tell me what's happening. So they did. All 3 of them, taking turns describing the scenes, the expressions, the visual jokes I'd otherwise miss. Other moviegoers shushed us twice. We moved to the back row and kept going, whispering descriptions that had me laughing at inappropriate moments. When the movie ended, the manager apologized for the audio issue and offered free tickets. We're good, Kieran said. That was perfect as it was. And it had been. The 6th date was a cooking class, not just watching Julian cook, but all 4 of us taking an actual class together. This should be interesting, the instructor said when she saw us. Usually we don't get groups quite like yours. We're unique, Kieran agreed cheerfully. The class was pasta making, hand-rolling dough, cutting it into perfect ribbons, learning the timing for al dente. My blindness made it challenging, but Adrian stood behind me, his hands guiding mine through the motions. Julian described the texture I should be feeling. Kieran taste-tested everything and gave dramatic commentary. This is either the best pasta I've ever had, or you've accidentally created a new form of punishment, he declared, after trying my first attempt. Shut up, I said, but I was laughing. We ate our creations afterward. The pasta was decent, the company was perfect. The 7th date was the botanical gardens. They described everything, the colors of the flowers, the architecture of the greenhouses, the way light filtered through leaves. There's a butterfly on your shoulder, Julian said suddenly. Really? Bright orange and black. It's just sitting there. I stayed very still, felt the delicate weight of it. It trusts you, Adrian said quietly, knows you're safe. The butterfly stayed for almost a minute before flying away, but the memory of it, of being trusted by something so fragile, stayed with me much longer. The 8th date was a disaster that turned into a revelation. We'd planned to go bowling, but when we arrived, the accessibility options were non-existent. No guide rails, no audio cues, no way for me to participate meaningfully. We can do something else, Adrian said immediately. No, I was tired of always being the limitation. Let's just go. But I was quiet the whole time, frustrated and embarrassed and angry at myself for ruining their night. On the drive home, Kieran noticed. Talk to us, he said. What's wrong? I'm tired of being the broken one, I admitted. The one who can't do normal things. The one you always have to accommodate. The car pulled over. Adrian turned in his seat. You're not broken, he said firmly. You're adapted. There's a difference. I can't even bowl. Who cares about bowling? Julian interrupted. We can bowl any time. What we can't do is spend time with you any time. That's what matters. You deserve someone who isn't complicated, I said. We don't want simple, Kieran said. We want you, all of you, including the parts you think are too hard. And somehow, in that moment, I started to believe them. The ninth date was a farmer's market. They guided me through stalls, describing produce I couldn't see but could smell and touch. These tomatoes smell perfect, I said, picking one up. They're bright red, Adrian described. Still have the vine attached. The vendor says they were picked this morning. We bought ingredients for dinner, cooked together at their place, made a mess of the kitchen and didn't care. The 10th date was the night I met their parents formally. They already love you, Kieran assured me as we pulled up to their childhood home. Mom's been asking when we'd make it official. Make what official? We're just dating. All three of them went quiet. What? I asked. We're not just dating, Adrian said carefully. At least, not for us. We know what you are to us. We're just waiting for you to feel it too. My heart stuttered. The mate bond. We're not going to push, Julian said. But we're not just casually dating either. This is it for us. You're it. Before I could respond, the front door opened. Evelyn greeted me with a hug that felt like home. Richard shook my hand and said, "Welcome to the family." Not nice to meet you. Welcome to the family. Like it was already decided. And maybe it was. Within 2 weeks, I was seeing them more than I wasn't. They showed up at my work with coffee that I hadn't asked for but desperately needed, took me to concerts where I could feel the music vibrate through my bones, cooked dinner at their penthouse, a massive space that I navigated by scent and sound and the memory of their patient guidance. I met their family at a Sunday brunch that terrified me. Relax, Adrian murmured as we approached the restaurant. They're going to love you. Their mother, Evelyn, hugged me within 30 seconds of meeting me. You're exactly what my boys need, she said. Her scent was warm vanilla, completely unthreatening. Someone who sees past the money and the name to who they actually are. I'm still working on seeing anything, I joked. She laughed. Actually laughed. I like you. Their father, Richard, was quieter. Asked thoughtful questions about audio engineering, about accessibility in my field, about how I'd adapted after the accident. You've built a good life, he said at the end of brunch. Despite the obstacles. That takes strength. Thank you. Take care of my boys, he added. They act tough, but they're softer than they pretend. I introduced them to Zara 2 weeks later. She took one look at the three of them and mouthed, "Oh my God," in a way that my limited vision could still catch. Down, girl, I muttered. I'm just appreciating, she said innocently. Then, louder. So which one of you made Elliot smile like that? All of us, Kieran said. We're an all-or-nothing package. Lucky Elliot, Zara said. Then, to me, if you screw this up, I'm stealing them. Noted. We fell into rhythms that felt like home. Sunday brunch with their family became tradition. Wednesday movie nights at my apartment, they'd bring dinner. I'd pick the audiobook we'd listen to instead. Friday dinners at their penthouse where Julian cooked experimental dishes and Kieran critiqued them with increasingly absurd commentary, and Adrian sat beside me on their massive couch and held my hand like it was precious. I learned their patterns. Adrian was an early riser who worked out before dawn. Julian was a night owl who did his best thinking after midnight. Kieran was adaptable, shifting his schedule to match whoever needed company. They learned mine. That I needed verbal warnings before being touched. That I navigated best in familiar spaces. That I got overwhelmed in crowds and needed quiet to recharge. They made their penthouse accessible without making it obvious. Labeled things in Braille. Kept furniture in consistent places. Described changes before implementing them. You didn't have to do all this, I said when I noticed the modifications. We want you comfortable here, Adrian said. This is your space too. Or it could be. Eventually, if you want. I wanted. 3 months in, they asked me to stay the night. Not for, Adrian paused, searching for words. We just want to sleep beside you, wake up with you, if you're comfortable with that. I was, more than comfortable. I stayed, and waking up between Adrian and Julian, with Kieran's arm draped across all of us, felt like the most natural thing in the world. Morning, Adrian murmured when I stirred. Morning. I burrowed deeper into his warmth. What time is it? Early. Go back to sleep. I did. And when I woke again to the smell of coffee and the sound of Julian cooking breakfast, I felt more at home than I'd felt anywhere. But I still hadn't told them my secret, that my suppressants were failing, that my doctor had switched me to a generic brand my insurance would cover, and it wasn't working as well, that every time I was near them, my omega instincts got harder to ignore, that I was terrified of what would happen when my heat finally broke through. I found out 4 months after that first subway ride. It hit at 3 a.m. on a Thursday. I woke up drenched in sweat, my body on fire, my scent blooming out of me in waves I couldn't control. Heat. My first real heat in 7 years. I grabbed my phone with shaking hands, called my doctor's emergency line. It redirected to an answering service. The earliest appointment was Monday. 3 days away. I couldn't do this alone. Couldn't survive 3 days of heat in my apartment with no help. My fingers found the contact saved in my phone. Adrian, Subway Alpha. I called. He answered on the first ring. Elliot, what's wrong? I need help. My voice came out wrong. Desperate and thick and not mine. My suppressants failed and I'm in heat and I don't know what to do. Where are you? Home. But I can't let you come here. We're already getting dressed. Text us your address. Adrian, you don't understand. I'm in heat. If you come here, we'll help you, however you need. Just hold on. The call ended. I sent my address with trembling fingers, then collapsed back on my bed. What had I done? They arrived in 12 minutes. I heard them at my building entrance, the buzz of my intercom. Elliot, it's us. Buzz us in. I did. Heard their footsteps on the stairs. They'd taken the stairs instead of waiting for the elevator. Then they were at my door. I'd left it unlocked because I couldn't make it across the apartment anymore. They came in. I heard the door close, the lock engage. Elliot? Adrian's voice, concerned and calm. Where are you? Bedroom. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have called. You should go. He appeared in the doorway. I couldn't see him, but I could smell him. Cedar and winter and alpha and right. We're not going anywhere. He crossed to the bed, knelt beside it. His hand found my forehead. You're burning up. When did this start? An hour ago. Maybe 2. I don't know. Julian appeared on my other side. Have you been through heat before? Not like this. Not since I was 18. Before the accident. The suppressants always worked before. Okay, Kieran's voice from the doorway. Okay, we can handle this. Adrian, call Dr. Mitchell. Julian, cold water and clean sheets. I'll stay with Elliot. They moved with efficiency that suggested they'd done this before. Had training I didn't know about. Adrian's phone call was brief. Then he was back beside me. Our doctor's coming. He specializes in Omega care. He'll be here in 20 minutes. You have a doctor who makes house calls at 3 a.m.? We have resources, Adrian said simply, and we're using them for you. Dr. Mitchell arrived with a medical bag and a professional demeanor that made me feel less like a disaster and more like a patient. He examined me, asked questions, confirmed what I already knew. Your suppressants failed. Given the heat intensity, I'd say they've been failing gradually for a while. Can you give him something? Adrian asked. Something to help? I can give him medication to reduce the fever and the cramping, but heat needs to run its course. 3 days minimum. He can't stay alone, Julian said. No, doctor. Mitchell agreed. He'll need constant supervision. Hydration, temperature monitoring, comfort measures. He looked at the 3 of them. I assume you're planning to stay? Yes, they said in unison. Good. I'll write instructions. He's lucky to have you. After the doctor left, they helped me change into clean clothes, set up a rotation of cold compresses, made me drink water even when I didn't think I could. And when my omega instincts screamed for alpha contact, when the heat made me desperate and needy and unable to think clearly, they gave me that too. Sat beside me, let me lean against them, filled my space with their scent until my biology settled enough that I could breathe. But they never crossed the line, never took advantage of my vulnerability. How do you know how to do this? I asked on the second day, when my fever had broken enough that I could form coherent sentences. We have medical training, Adrian explained. He was sitting beside me on the bed, my head in his lap while he ran cool fingers through my hair. All 3 of us. It's required for alphas in certain professions. professions where you might encounter omegas in distress. What profession requires that? Executive protection, Kieran said from his chair. We ran a security firm before we moved into consulting. Learned everything about omega care, heat management, crisis response. That explains so much. The way they move together, the efficiency, the calm in emergency. I'm sorry, I said, for dragging you into this. Don't be. Julian's hand found mine. We're glad you called us, glad you trusted us to help. On the third day, when the heat finally broke completely, I woke up in clean sheets, with Adrian asleep in a chair beside my bed, Julian on the floor with a pillow, and Kieran sprawled across the end of the bed like a cat. They'd stayed, all of them, for 3 days. You're awake, Adrian said. His eyes opened immediately. How do you feel? Exhausted, embarrassed, grateful. Don't be embarrassed. Heat happens. He moved to sit on the edge of the bed. How's your head? Clearer, less like it's full of cotton. I paused. You really stayed the whole time? Where else would we be? I didn't have an answer for that. Adrian's hand found my face, thumb brushing my cheek. Can I tell you something? Anything. We've known from the first moment. On the subway, when you fell into my lap and your scent hit me even through your suppressants. His voice was quiet, serious. We recognized you immediately. My breath caught. Recognized me as what? Our fated mate. All three of us felt it. The bond snapping into place. The certainty. That's not possible. Fated mates are rare. 3 alphas recognizing the same omega is extremely rare, he agreed, but not impossible, and definitely real. His hand stayed gentle on my face. We've been waiting for you to feel it too, to be ready. We weren't going to push. But the heat made it impossible to ignore, he finished. Made it clear that suppressants were hiding what's always been there. He pulled back slightly. But if you're not ready, if this is too much, we can step back. Go back to just dating. Give you time. I thought about the last 4 months. The dates, the laughter, the feeling of rightness that came from being near them. Thought about the last 3 days. How they'd cared for me without demanding anything in return. How they'd kept me safe without taking advantage. Thought about waking up and feeling whole for the first time since I'd lost my sight. I don't want to step back, I said. I want you, all of you. I want this. The relief that flooded his scent was intoxicating. Yeah? Yeah. He kissed me. Soft and careful and full of promise. And for the first time in 7 years, I felt like I could finally see clearly. Within a month, I started working at Hawthorne Dynamics. They gave me an office with windows that let in natural light, assistive technology that made navigation effortless, and a team of 3 other Omegas who'd been waiting for someone to lead their advocacy division. We've had the funding for years, explained Mira, a sharp-witted Omega who'd been with the company for a decade. But the Hawthorns refused to move forward until they found the right person to run it. Someone who'd lived the experience, not just studied it. My first week was overwhelming, learning the company structure, meeting dozens of people, trying to figure out how to translate years of personal struggle into actionable advocacy. You're overthinking it, Adrian said one evening as I stressed over my first public speech. Just tell your story. That's all anyone needs to hear. My story isn't that interesting. Blind Omega works multiple jobs, hides his designation, barely survives. There are thousands like me. Exactly. He pulled me close. Thousands of Omegas living the same struggle. And you're giving them a voice, showing them they're not alone. My first speech was at a local Omega support group. 20 people in a community center basement, most of them looking as nervous as I felt. I talked about being blind in a world designed for sighted people, about being Omega in a society that treated my designation as less than, about the exhaustion of hiding, the fear of being discovered, the impossible choice between safety and authenticity. When I finished, the room was silent. Then a young Omega in the back raised his hand. How did you stop being afraid? I didn't, I said honestly. I'm still afraid, but I decided being seen was worth the risk, and I found alphas who made me feel safe enough to be seen. After the speech, a dozen Omegas approached me, shared their own stories, asked how they could get involved. You're changing lives, Julian said that night. We're changing lives, I corrected. This is all of us. The work consumed me in the best possible way. I traveled to give speeches at universities, Omega shelters, advocacy conferences, consulted on legislation aimed at protecting Omega rights, worked with my team to build mentorship programs connecting young Omegas with successful Omega professionals. And everywhere I went, I carried the Hawthorne name, not as their Omega, but as their equal partner in changing the world. But not everyone was happy about it. The backlash started small. Angry emails calling me a traitor to traditional values, comments on articles about my work claiming I was making Omegas look weak. I deleted them, didn't want to give trolls power over me. Then someone showed up at my office. An alpha I didn't recognize, demanding I stop my propaganda about Omega equality. Security escorted him out, but his scent, aggressive and threatening, lingered. "We're increasing your security detail," Adrian said when I told him. His scent had gone sharp with protective fury. "That seems extreme. Someone came to your office and threatened you. That's not extreme. That's necessary." He was right. Over the following weeks, the threats escalated. Someone vandalized the community center where I'd given my first speech. A protest showed up outside Hawthorne Dynamics headquarters with signs claiming we were destroying the natural order. My personal information, address, phone number, daily routine was leaked online. "They're trying to scare you into silence," Kieran said as we watched news coverage of the protest. "It's working," I admitted. "I'm terrified." Julian's hand found mine. "You don't have to do this. We can step back, find another way to make change." "No," I straightened. "That's exactly what they want. They want me to disappear, to prove that Omegas can't handle being visible. I'm not giving them that satisfaction." "Then we fight," Adrian said. His scent blazed with determination. "Together." The attack came on a Tuesday evening. I was leaving the office late, my security guard beside me, when they appeared. 6 alphas in masks, all radiating aggression that made my Omega instincts scream danger. "The Omega who thinks he's people," one of them sneered. "Time to learn your place." My security guard stepped forward, got knocked unconscious in one brutal hit. I ran, made it half a block before they surrounded me. I fought back, used every self-defense technique Adrian had taught me, but I was 1 Omega against 6 alphas. I was losing. Then I heard it, a roar that shook windows and set off car alarms. The triplets. They descended like an act of God. Adrian, Julian, and Kieran, moving with coordinated violence that was beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. The fight was brutal but efficient. My attackers didn't stand a chance against 3 enraged alphas protecting their fated mate. When it was over, all 6 attackers were unconscious on the ground, and my alphas stood over them, breathing hard, scents wild with protective fury and barely contained rage. "Elliot." Adrian's hands cupped my face, checking for injuries. "Are you hurt?" "Bruised, scared, but okay." "We're pressing charges," Julian said. His voice was ice cold. "And we're finding out who sent them." The investigation led to a traditional alpha organization called the Heritage Foundation. They'd been funding anti-Omega groups for decades, operating in the shadows while publicly claiming to support family values. The publicity was intense. News outlets covered the attack. My story went viral, blind Omega advocate attacked for speaking out about rights. The outpouring of support was overwhelming. But so was the continued hatred. More threats, more protests, more alphas claiming I was destroying society by refusing to accept my natural place. "Maybe they're right," I said one night, exhausted and scared. "Maybe I am making things worse." Adrian's hands framed my face. "Look at me. Well, you know what I mean." I smiled despite everything. "I'm looking. You're not making things worse. You're making things better. You're giving voice to thousands of Omegas who've been silenced. You're changing laws and minds and lives. The fact that some people hate that just proves you're doing it right." "It's so hard," I whispered. "I know, but you're not doing it alone." Kieran's hand found my shoulder. "You have us. You have your team. You have thousands of Omegas who believe in what you're doing." "And tomorrow," Julian added, "we're going to announce a new initiative, Omega Safety Programs. legal defense funds, support networks. We're turning this attack into action. They did exactly that. Within a month, Hawthorne Dynamics had launched the most comprehensive Omega protection program in the country. Free legal services for Omegas facing discrimination. Security training, safe houses, mental health support. And I became the face of it all. How does it feel? A reporter asked at the press conference. Being the most visible Omega advocate in the country? Terrifying, I said honestly, but necessary. For too long, Omegas have been invisible, have been told to stay quiet, stay hidden, accept less. I'm done accepting less. We all should be. The clip went viral. Within days, thousands of Omegas were sharing their own stories, demanding change, refusing to stay silent. The Heritage Foundation tried to fight back, but public opinion had turned against them. Corporate sponsors pulled funding, leaders faced criminal charges for ordering the attack. Within 6 months, they'd collapsed entirely. You did it, Adrian said as we watched the news coverage of their dissolution. You actually changed everything. We did it, I corrected, all of us. But the victory felt hollow, because in the midst of all the chaos and fighting and public scrutiny, I'd been neglecting what mattered most. My relationship with the triplets. We'd been so focused on survival, on fighting external battles, that we'd stopped nurturing what was between us. Stolen moments instead of real time, quick kisses instead of deep connection. I miss you, I said one night after another late meeting, another crisis managed, another threat neutralized. All of you. I feel like we're ships passing in the night. Then let's stop passing, Kieran said. Let's actually be together. They took a week off. Completely off, no work, no calls, no emergency meetings. We went to a cabin in the mountains, just the four of us, surrounded by trees and silence and space to breathe. The first day, we slept. Actually slept, tangled together in a bed big enough for all of us, catching up on months of exhaustion. The second day, we talked. Really talked about everything we'd been through, everything we'd been feeling, everything we needed. I'm scared, I admitted, that this work will consume me, that I'll lose myself in being the Omega advocate and forget to just be Elliot. Then we remind you, Adrian said, every day. We remind you who you are beyond the work, beyond the cause. Just Elliot. Our Elliot. And we're scared too, Julian added, that we'll fail to protect you, that our resources and power won't be enough when it matters. You saved my life, I pointed out. You've saved me in every way that matters. And you've saved us, Kieran said quietly. We were so focused on the work, on changing the world, that we'd forgotten to live in it. You reminded us what we're fighting for. The third day we played, hiked through the forest with me holding their hands, listening to them describe the view, cooked together in the cabin's tiny kitchen. Sat by the fire and talked about nothing important. The fourth day, we made love. Not the frantic, desperate coupling of early relationships, but slow and deliberate and perfect. 3 alphas showing me exactly how cherished I was, how seen, how loved. And when we finally bonded, really bonded, with marks and claims and permanent connections, it felt like coming home. Ours, Adrian whispered against my throat. Yours, I whispered back. Always yours. When we returned to the city, everything had changed. Not the work, not the external challenges, but us. We were stronger, more connected, better equipped to face whatever came next. And what came next was beautiful. The legislation we'd been fighting for passed. Omega discrimination became illegal federally. Protections were enshrined in law. My advocacy program expanded to 12 cities. Hundreds of Omegas trained as speakers and activists. Thousands more found support and community. Hawthorne Dynamics became the gold standard for Omega-inclusive businesses. Other companies followed their model. And slowly, painfully, beautifully, the world began to change. Do you ever regret it? I asked Adrian one night, 2 years after we'd bonded. Taking that subway ride? Letting a blind Omega fall into your lap? All of this? He pulled me closer. Never. Not for a single second. Even with all the complications? Especially because of the complications. Easy things aren't worth having. You're worth every challenge, every fight, every moment of fear. You're worth everything. We should probably stop having deep conversations in bed, I said. It's very distracting. Kieran laughed from his spot on my other side. You started it. I'm ending it, Julian said, pulling me toward him. Less talking, more appreciating the fact that we have an entire evening with no crises to manage. We took his advice. The bonding ceremony happened 6 months later. We'd taken our time, built our relationship on a foundation stronger than just biology and faded bonds. I'd moved into their penthouse 3 months after my heat, met their extended family, been accepted into their pack with a warmth that made me cry. They'd learned my routines, my needs, my fears, had made their space accessible in ways I hadn't known to ask for, had loved me so thoroughly that I'd finally stopped waiting for them to realize I wasn't worth the effort. The ceremony was small, just family and close friends, but planning it had been anything but simple. Traditional or modern? The wedding planner had asked. Both, Kieran said. We want the old rituals, but updated for who we are. We held it in the botanical gardens where we'd had our 7th date, the same place where a butterfly had trusted me enough to land on my shoulder. I wore white because Adrian had quietly requested it. I want to see you walking toward us, he'd said. Want to remember this moment forever. They wore matching dark suits that Zara described as criminally hot and possibly illegal in some states. The officiant was an elder Omega who'd performed bonding ceremonies for 30 years. She spoke words about pack bonds and permanent claims, about 3 alphas and 1 omega becoming something greater than the sum of their parts, about love that transcended designation and traditional expectations. These 4 have already chosen each other, she said, have already built a life together. Today, we're simply making permanent what their hearts already know. The marking came first, traditional, intimate, profound. Adrian stepped forward. His hand cupped my face. I claim you, he said. The traditional words, but his voice made them new. As my omega, my mate, my everything, I promise to protect you, cherish you, stand beside you for all my days. His teeth found my neck. The bite was sharp, purposeful. I felt the bond snap into place like a golden thread connecting us, his emotions suddenly as clear as my own. Julian was next. His marking went beside Adrian's. I claim you, he whispered. I promise to support your dreams, challenge you when you need it, love you when you don't think you deserve it. Another bite, another bond, another thread of gold. Kieran's marking completed the set. I claim you, he said, and his voice shook slightly. I promise to make you laugh when you're sad, hold you when you're scared, remind you every day that you're exactly where you belong. The third bite, the third bond. And suddenly, I could feel all 3 of them, their emotions tangled with mine, their presence humming under my skin. And you? The officiant asked me. Do you claim them? I'd been given a ceremonial blade, silver, ancient, meant for marking without permanently scarring. I marked each of them in turn, on their wrists, where everyone would see. I claim you, I said to Adrian. I promise to trust you, even when I'm afraid. To let you protect me, because that's what you need, but to stand strong beside you when you need that instead. To Julian, I claim you. I promise to appreciate your steadiness, lean on your strength, and remind you that it's okay to not always have the answers. To Kieran, I claim you. I promise to laugh at your jokes, even the bad ones, to let you bring lightness to my darkness, to love you for exactly who you are. The bond's sealed, complete and permanent and perfect. I declare you bonded, the officiant said. A pack of 4. May your bonds last all your days. The celebration afterward was joyful chaos. Evelyn cried through the entire reception. Richard gave a speech about finding partners who make you better than you could be alone. Zara got drunk and loudly declared that she'd totally called it from the first date. But the best part was after. When we went home to the penthouse, our home now, truly ours and celebrated privately. Later, in the privacy of our bedroom, we completed the bond. It was gentle and overwhelming and perfect, 3 alphas showing me exactly how cherished I was. They took turns, Adrian first, then Julian, then Kieran, each claiming me in the way that mattered most, each making sure I knew exactly how wanted I was. And afterward, Lying tangled in sheets, with their scents surrounding me and their bonds humming under my skin, I finally understood what I'd been missing for 7 years. I'd been incomplete, and they'd made me whole. 2 years later, I stood in the nursery we'd built together, holding our daughter while she slept. Isla had my dark hair and features from all three of her fathers. Genetic testing had confirmed what we'd suspected: pack bonds sometimes resulted in children who carried markers from all bonded alphas. She was a miracle, our perfect, impossible miracle. "How is she?" Adrian's voice from the doorway. "Perfect, always perfect." He crossed to us, wrapped his arms around both of us, just like her papa. Kieran and Julian appeared behind him, drawn by the same instinct that always brought them when family gathered. "Our whole world," Julian said softly, looking at Isla. "Both of them," Kieran corrected, his hand finding my shoulder. I leaned back against Adrian, felt Kieran's touch, saw Julian's smile even though I couldn't see, and thought about a rainy Friday night 4 years ago when I'd fallen onto a stranger's lap and accidentally found everything I'd been looking for. "I love you," I said. "All of you. So much." "We love you too," they said in unison. And in that moment, surrounded by my pack and holding our daughter, I knew exactly what home felt like. 5 years after that first subway ride, I stood at a podium addressing the National Omega Rights Conference. The conference had 3,000 attendees, Omegas from across the country, along with allied alphas and betas. My speech was being live-streamed to tens of thousands more. 5 years ago, I said, my voice amplified through the convention center. I was hiding, pretending to be beta, working myself to exhaustion just to survive, terrified that if anyone knew what I really was, I'd lose everything. I paused, felt Adrian's presence in the front row, his scent reaching me even from a distance. Today, I stand here as a proud Omega, a bonded mate to 3 incredible alphas, a father to a beautiful daughter, and the director of the largest Omega advocacy program in the country. That transformation didn't happen because I became brave overnight. It happened because people, alphas, betas, and omegas alike, decided that the old ways weren't good enough anymore. The applause was thunderous. After the speech, dozens of omegas approached me, younger ones mostly, looking for hope and guidance. "How did you do it?" a teenager asked. "How did you stop being afraid?" "I didn't stop being afraid," I told him honestly. "I just decided that living authentically was worth the fear, and I found people who made me feel safe enough to try." In the car ride home, Kieran recounted the speech with dramatic flair, making me laugh. "You were brilliant," Julian said, "as always." "I was nervous," I admitted. "You didn't sound it," Adrian said, his hand finding mine. "You sounded exactly like what you are, powerful, confident, ours." Home was the house we'd built together, not the penthouse we'd outgrown that when Isla was born. Now, we had an actual house with a yard and a nursery and an office designed specifically for my accessibility needs. Isla was 4 now, old enough to have opinions and vocabulary and a personality that somehow combined the best parts of all 3 of her fathers. She was waiting at the door when we arrived, held safely by Evelyn, who babysat whenever I traveled for work. "Papa!" She launched herself at me. I caught her easily, even without seeing her coming. 4 years of practice. "Hey, little bird, were you good for Grandma?" "So good," Evelyn said. "We made cookies and read 3 books, and she only broke 1 plate." "Only 1, I repeated. "That's improvement." After Evelyn left, we fell into our evening routine. Julian cooked dinner while Kieran entertained Isla with increasingly ridiculous voices. Adrian helped me prep my materials for tomorrow's meetings. "The senator's office confirmed," he said. "They want your input on the Omega healthcare bill." "That's huge." "You're huge," he corrected. 5 years ago, senators weren't taking meetings with Omegas. Now, they're asking for your expertise. At dinner, Isla insisted on telling us about her day in excruciating detail. How she'd built a castle out of blocks. How Grandma's cookies were the bestest ever. How she wanted a puppy, please, she'd be so responsible. "We'll discuss the puppy," Kieran said diplomatically. "That means no," Isla grumbled. "That means we'll discuss it," Julian corrected. "Which means maybe." Her face lit up. "Maybe is almost yes." "Maybe is maybe," I said, but I was already mentally planning how to make the house more dog-friendly. After Isla was in bed, the 4 of us collapsed on the couch. I was wedged between Adrian and Julian. Kieran sprawled across all of us. Long day, Kieran mumbled. Good day, though, I said. The speech went well. The senator meeting is happening. Isla only broke one plate. Low bar, Julian said, but he was smiling. She's 4. That's an excellent bar. Adrian's hand found my face, tilted it toward him. Are you happy? Deliriously, I said honestly. I have work that matters, a daughter who's perfect, 3 mates who love me even when I'm difficult. What else could I want? A puppy, apparently, Kieran said. We all laughed. Later, lying in bed with all 3 of them, I thought about the journey that had brought us here. From a blind Omega barely surviving to a bonded mate with a family and a purpose. From hiding my designation to standing on national stages advocating for Omega rights. From loneliness to belonging so complete it still sometimes took my breath away. Thank you, I said into the darkness. For what? Adrian asked. For not pulling away. That first night, on the subway, you could have moved me, could have made me stand, could have done what most people would have done and created distance. I didn't want distance, he said simply. I wanted you close, wanted to keep you safe. From the very first moment, that's all I've ever wanted. We all did, Julian added. The bond might have told us you were ours, but we already knew, already felt it. You were exhausted and beautiful and brave, Kieran said. Falling asleep on a stranger's lap because you were too tired to be afraid. How could we not love you? I turned toward them, even though I couldn't see their faces in the dark. It didn't need to. I knew every line, every expression, knew them by scent and touch and the bond that hummed between us. I love you, I said. All of you, more than I have words for. We know, Adrian said. We feel it, every day. And they did. Through the bond that connected us, through the life we'd built, through every choice we made to choose each other, again and again. This was home. Not a place, but a feeling. Not perfection, but belonging. And it was everything. Thank you for joining Elliot Reed's journey from exhausted Omega on the subway to cherished, bonded mate and father. If this story of accidental meetings, patient alphas, and finding family in unexpected places touched your heart, hit that like button and subscribe for more BL Omegaverse stories. Drop a comment telling me which alpha was your favorite, Adrian, Julian, or Kieran. Until next time, remember, sometimes the scariest moments lead to the most beautiful beginnings and the right people will catch you when you fall.